Welcome back. So today we are going to talk about how to be persistent, be creative, and pivot in your business if you're currently experiencing some difficulty. What really separates salespeople that fail from those that thrive and ultimately survive in difficult times is persistence and creativity. They say the only person who quits the only person who fails is the person who quits. If you never quit and you never give up, you never fail. You just keep pushing through. And creativity and doing things that are different than what you're used to over the past several years or decades in some cases will be extremely helpful in surviving right now. People who are successful sellers tend to persist through challenging times. They have to come up with very creative solutions to the challenges that they face. And they don't give up in the face of adversity. If you give up every time you receive some pressure or some blowback or some adversity, you're never going to get ahead. You have to keep pushing through even when the times are tough. Occasionally, and this might be the situation that you find yourself in today, you have to pivot to a completely different business model. I'll give you an example right now. So Polaroid is a company that really didn't look at problems as an opportunity for change or with any level of persistence or creativity. They failed to actually pivot when it really mattered for their business. In the late 90s, digital photography really began to take over. And I'm not even talking about posting things on social media. That wasn't even a thing. I'm just talking about taking a photograph in a way that was shared, stored digitally so that you didn't have to go to your local pharmacy or photomat and have the photo produced on paper. But Polaroid executives at the time really put their head in the sand. They continued to believe that people were still going to want hard copy photos. So they really didn't take advantage of the situation. They ignored the issue that was really beleaguering their company at the time that they didn't realize, and wouldn't consider any other business model than the one that got them to where they were at the time. Well, no doubt digital photography has blown up and now it's turned into whole other different things and product lines. And as a result, Polaroid filed for bankruptcy in 2001. Now they're still around in a few other iterations, but not really the way they were back when I was growing up or before any of the digital photography that's out there today. And Polaroid was a great company and was really, Polaroid was a brand that described taking photographs, much like Kodak is another example, but such is no longer the case. Another company to consider on the other side of this example is Yelp. So Yelp really used creativity and persistence to break through when they were struggling in their business. Yelp started really as a platform for getting recommendations from friends. So if you were going to go somewhere, you could kind of like poll your friends and figure out, was it a great place? Was it not? Was it worth it? Well, that didn't really catch on. They didn't get any traction with that, even though they were at the time well-funded for where they were in the life cycle of their business. They did, however, notice that people really enjoyed writing reviews of local businesses, because if you think about it, word of mouth is really the way we let people know how we feel about things. And social media has turned that into a whole new world. We're constantly looking to complain or talk about our experiences as to what we had at a meal or a business we visited. So what Yelp did was they pivoted the entire business to focus on making it easy to write a review about what your experience was, and the rest is history. That really was the launch pad for how Facebook does it, and TripAdvisor, and some of these other platforms as well. So even in the worst circumstances, when you feel like you are on the mat and there's nowhere else to go, there are still options. I mean, look at what's going on at the time that I'm filming this. Right now, it's almost July of 2020. We've been involved in this coronavirus pandemic for the last several months. I mean, many companies have had to pivot in a big way. Anheuser-Busch, they're legendary for beer and brewing, but they've begun to manufacture hand sanitizer in this time. Vodka companies have done, and other liquor companies have done the exact same thing. Hanes, the clothing company, they've started producing medical masks. Lyft has used their network of cars to deliver medical supplies to hospitals and people who can't get out of their home. Ford has used its infrastructure to make ventilators and medical face masks. And Farmers Restaurant Group has been delivering food supplies to customers. So, these are probably not permanent changes for a lot of these companies. Some of them might be. They might make them an add-on part of their business. But the point of all of that is, how can you pivot in your business so that you're staying afloat and you're meeting the demands that are present in your marketplace now, while also not completely abandoning the business that got you to where you are today? So there's a few ways to think about that you could maybe pivot in your business. First, utilize a new sales channel. So if you're currently a brick and mortar, one location business, you may want to consider selling online if you're not doing that already. An example of that is my parents own a women's clothing store. 100% of their business is done in the store, but they had to pivot to doing social media advertising and marketing to sell products for the 8 weeks that they were closed during the pandemic. Segment your customers, right? So if 80% of the revenue that you're generating is coming from the 20% of your customers that you have, it's the old 80-20 rule, make sure that instead of trying to please everyone, what you're doing is focused on the 20% of the people that are generating the revenue. And as you're doing the research to figure out what matters to your customer and what's important, that's the segment of your audience and your customer base that you want to focus on. Another thing is, right now in this strange time that we're in, focusing on a feature, focusing on one thing about your product or service that brings a lot of benefit to the marketplace could be an advantageous avenue to take. So if you have a particularly popular feature, or if there's something that's constantly the reason why over time you've seen customers come into your business, focus real heavily on that. Focus on what it is that you do great. What do you do well? What do your customers rely on you for? Because then you can put your stake in the ground as to what you can do to help the marketplace that you're trying to serve. Also, you may want to consider changing your revenue model, okay? Historically, things like journalism, newspapers relied on subscriptions for funding. Well, they now have to rely almost entirely on advertising. In fact, a lot of newspapers, a lot of print publications that you may be familiar with, have stopped printing altogether, but they still have to make money. And different advertising. Now they're selling advertising on their online platforms. That's not a new thing, of course, but it is a new way that people think about those platforms because of the way that the time has changed around them. And something else to consider would be reevaluating your pricing and positioning of your products. So if there's someone that you can't compete with on price for a variety of reasons, go back to that one thing you can focus on and compete on quality. And so just reconsider, if you're lagging behind, where can you adjust the business accordingly? Also, you want to maybe consider adopting new technology. I mean, there's so much new technology that's popped up just in the last several months that might be able to help you reach more customers on top of what's expanded over the last decade with social media advertising and even free resources as well. So let's say maybe you were a tutoring company, okay? You can still use platforms like Zoom to allow you to communicate virtually with people. I actually saw there was a summer camp that can't get together in person right now, but they're using Zoom to do virtual summer camps. They can still capture some of that revenue, still keep in touch with their client base, and provide a product and a service that their people want. The reality is, no matter what business you're in, if it didn't change today, you're not experiencing challenges today, you may still experience some in the next several weeks, months, or years ahead. So technology is constantly changing. It is a benefit. It is an upside. It is something that we all need to embrace. And if a technology does not exist for something you need today, create it. There has never been a better or an easier time to do so. The marketplace is always in flux. you can even create some of that flux by developing enhancements. New competitors are regularly going to emerge for you. And these difficulties, these changes, these challenges, they don't need to sink or hurt your business, right? You don't want to give up. You want to push through. You want to persevere. You want to have persistence, because persistence produces the success that you're looking for. All these videos that I've shared with you so far today have really been designed to push you through, to push into the marketplace to get to that level of success. If you fall, get back up. Okay? You don't want to quit. You don't want to take any sort of defeat. You want to look at everything that we're going through in this time and in any future times as opportunities to reevaluate. So again and again and again, you want to persevere and be creative. And so that's my message to you today. Persevere, get creative, persist, pivot your business, and make sure that you're set up for success, and make sure that you're evaluating new ways that you can do what you love, do what you do, and do it in a way that's going to be advantageous for your clients and ultimately your bottom line.